Moms with aspiration, moms are inspirations, moms in circulation, moms at their workstations. Mom, 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 they make a nation. Mom, this is a Mom Nation.
Hey moms, Katie here with More Than a Mom with Katie and Beth and my lovely co-host.
Hello.
There she is. Hello, Beth. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Katie?
I am doing wonderful as well. So moms, here is the reason for this More Than a Mom podcast. You are out there, you have questions, maybe they're family questions. In this particular case, it's a financial question. Maybe you have marriage questions, parenting questions, all of that, but you don't necessarily want to ask the group, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is this allows you to be anonymous when asking the group. So how you participate is you'll see a link floating around the MOMnation AZ group on Facebook. That is a link to our More Than a Mom sign-up sheet. So basically, you sign up, you put your question in there, you put your alias name in there, and then if your question is chosen to be on the show, then you're on the show. Super cool, right? You can also get to it from MOMnationAZ.com. And then, as always, we would love your feedback. Please like, comment, and follow us on whatever platform it is that you are listening to this podcast today. All right, Beth, so what do we have today? Which mom has written in?
Today we have Daphne. She says, my husband works and I stay home full time and I don't have any access to his account or any money. How do I resolve the situation and ask him to try to reason with him?
Oh, that's a heavy one. So what I think Daphne is experiencing is it sounds like maybe she has attempted to have this conversation before. Does it sound like that to you?
Yeah, that was kind of what I was feeling also.
So, and then perhaps she was met with something other than what her expectation was. So I guess the first resource would be, or the first direction would be communication with your spouse, straight up communication.
And really clear and specific communication. It's one thing to say, hey, I feel like I don't have any access to the money versus, hey, I need to be able to pay for X, Y, and Z for us and the kids or the house and the bills or whatever. I need to know this information so that our house can continue to run smoothly. Like, that's a very different conversation.
Exactly. So it's really all about spouse A and spouse B sitting down and very calmly and proactively sort of discussing both sides, because you're right. Maybe if Daphne doesn't have a good understanding of what the family finances actually are, maybe she'd find out there are no spare dollars.
Possibly. I think something really cool that came recommended to me by a friend was to create something called a love binder. And in this binder, you have all your bank account information. If you have investments, you have all that information. You have life insurance. You have your birth certificates. You have basically everything that you would need. Like if your house caught on fire and you had to pay your bills and start over, what would you need? And it's all in a binder. And they keep it like on their desk so that everyone, all the adults in the house have access to it at any time that they need to. And I thought that was a really neat idea, because how often do we think about what would happen if something happened to your spouse and all of a sudden you had to be responsible for all those things, but you didn't know how to access them. So it really is important for both spouses to have the information handy.
Totally agree. That's a huge point, and something that probably not a lot of people think of on a day-to-day basis, because who wants to think of something tragic happening, right?
Right.
And I think that maybe some people are kind of a little, maybe feel like it's a trust issue. Like, oh, well, why do you need to know about the finances? Like, don't you trust me? Don't you trust I'm handling it? And, don't you trust I'm taking care of it? And that is so opposite of what it actually is. I mean, how can you develop an appropriate mindset if you don't know where you stand in this world as an adult?
Exactly. It's difficult to know and plan for your future if you don't even know where you're at currently. And that includes your finances.
Well, right. And if you have just this big question mark, I mean, finances and bills and sort of the family management is a really big deal. It's a really big part of being an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have a firm grasp of that, personally, if I look at it from my eyes, I would feel like there's something missing, like I'm not quite an adult yet because I don't have a grasp of this, even if somebody else handles it.
Right. That kind of reminds me a little bit of me and my husband. For most of our marriage, even though he's been the main breadwinner of the family, I have been the one that manages our bank accounts and our investments and our bills and our debts. Like, I do all of it. I know all of the login information. I know how much those bills are every month. And something that we've started working on together is just having more of open communication. We created an Excel spreadsheet that lists every single one of our bills, how much it is and when it's due. And the next step for us is to list where to, like, the website to go log in and what the login information is. That way we both have access to it should we need to.
I think that is awesome. And it sounds like there's good communication between you and hubby in terms of that.
Yeah, and that's an idea that this mom can, make her own if that would work for them.
For sure. So our first suggestion is sit down and communicate. If you've already done that and it's not going the way that you'd like it to go, then perhaps bring a third party in.
Yeah, a counselor could be a great mediator.
And then you can kind of just figure out each other's sides and then how you can meet in the middle, because it doesn't make sense that somebody that was raised in some cases a completely different part of the country, by a completely different family, even a completely different culture perhaps, will behave, react, and think the same as another person. So when we come together in marriage, we kind of have that expectation. Oh, well, this person should know me so well. Oh, well, this person should think on the exact same page that I think. And that is rarely the case.
Right. That is definitely the anomaly in marriages. And I think that most of the time it is two very, very different people who are learning to work together. And sometimes they do need a counselor to help them learn about each other and about themselves. I went to counseling and I learned more about myself than I did about my husband.
Right. Makes a big difference. And now if you're not ready for that step, or if finances are tight and that kind of makes you a little bit worried, there are some other things that you can do in terms of just Googling on YouTube this particular topic. You're going to come up with a ton of videos. There are books out there. In fact, Beth and I read The Love Languages, and that is very, very helpful in just getting to know and understanding that your spouse probably takes in information in a different way than you do. And that is huge.
Yes, absolutely.
So there is a second sort of direction that we wanted to chat about with respect to this concern. And Beth, I'm going to have you take this one away because you know more about this one than I do.
Yeah. So sometimes when one person in a relationship, whether that be a marriage or like a caregiver type relationship, if you have an older adult with a child who takes care of them, there can be this thing that is very little known called financial abuse. And financial abuse happens when the abuser or the controller takes all the finances and prevents the other person from having any access ever. And that also basically traps that person in the relationship. It keeps them from leaving. It's a way this abuser would maintain power in the relationship. So an abuser could take control of the money, withhold it, conceal the information. And often when financial abuse is happening, there can be physical abuse, but not always. So this is something that I just wanted to bring to light and touch on a little bit, because a lot of people don't even know that it is a thing. So if you feel like this is something that you are dealing with, if it is so severe that you feel it is trapping you, there's a great resource. If you go to womenshealth.gov and you can go to relationships and safety, and then on the other types of violence and abuse against women, it's listed as financial abuse. The really cool thing about this website is if you go through and you're reading through things and you feel like you're in danger by reading this, then there's an escape button that will kick you off of this website and automatically jump you back to Google so that you can have that layer of protection. There's there's also a helpline. So if you need support on this issue, there's a hotline you can call. It's 1-800-994-9662.
So this is super interesting to me because before you actually brought this to my attention, I was one of those that had no idea that this is a thing, that this exists.
Yeah.
So say, for Daphne's situation, how would she know, like what cues would she have that, no, this isn't a communication issue, like the first sort of direction that we spoke about. Mm-hmm. This is more of an abusive issue. Like, are there some red flags? Are there some telltale?
Yes, there's definitely some red flags. In fact, that's one of the things that this website talks about. It says, how can I tell if I'm being financially abused? So right with what you were asking. Here's what it says. Often financial abuse is subtle and gradual, so it may be hard to recognize. Your partner may act as though taking over the finances is a way to make life easier for you, as if he or she is doing you a favor. Your partner might explain that giving you a set amount of money will help keep your family on track financially, but slowly the allowance becomes smaller and smaller, and before you know it, you are asking for money and being refused. Some of the common ways that financial abuse happens includes urging you to or demanding that you quit your job or preventing you from working, stalking or harassing you at work, refusing to give you access to bank accounts and hiding or keeping assets from you, giving you a set amount of money to spend and no more, constantly questioning purchases you make and demanding to see receipts, making financial decisions without consulting you, stealing your identity or filing fraudulent tax returns with your name attached to them, selling property that was yours, filing false insurance claims with your name on them, not paying child support so you can't afford rent, food, or other needed items, so that would apply in cases of divorce, and then forcing you to open lines of credit.
Wow, so there's a lot of stuff there. And maybe some of those things that you read don't necessarily point the finger toward abuse. Like I'm just thinking, asking your spouse about purchases that they've made.
Right.
So if my husband goes out and drops a couple $100 on something and I wasn't aware of it previously, and I just say, oh, hey, what was that? That's not necessarily financial abuse. That's just asking for more information.
Exactly.
However, coupled with especially some of the severe things that you just mentioned, then that might kind of lean you in a different direction.
Yeah. To give a more specific example, I have a relative who was in an abusive situation, and their finances were very controlled by the abuser to the point that they didn't have money for basic necessities. Like she did not have enough money to get groceries for her and the kids. She didn't have money to pay for new school shoes for the kids. Like things that were necessities ended up not being able to be paid for because she did not have the money. And eventually it got so bad that she went out and got a job, and that money was hers, and the abuser did not have access or control over it. So that is something that can happen. However, this website also recommends that if you feel you are in a situation of financial abuse, that there's some other steps that you should take. And it does talk about them in depth with, again, that hotline for you to be able to do what you feel is going to be best for your specific situation.
Perfect. That's a great resource. So the third direction that we wanted to discuss was just what you said, making your own money. So getting a job, and maybe there are, especially in Daphne's situation, sounds like she's a stay-at-home mom. So maybe there are some restrictions, so she can't go out and get a full-time job, a 9 to 5, that kind of thing.
Right.
So there are other things that we can do.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. There are so many ways to make extra money that we don't even think about. My husband and I just recently took a financial independence course, and one of the assignments was to make a list of ways that you can make money. And we got to be ridiculous with our list. There were no limits. It didn't matter if it was legal or not. I'm not saying do anything illegal. I'm just saying when you're brainstorming, sometimes it helps to get the ridiculous ideas out there when you're brainstorming.
It's a good exercise.
Yeah. So we brainstormed all sorts of things. We brainstormed selling sperm. We brainstormed like selling your eggs, if you're a woman, obviously. We talked about donating blood plasma because they pay you a little bit for plasma. We talked about selling things around the house that don't get used anymore and that we don't need. We talked about creating a business. Businesses are a great way to get extra income. Repurposing old furniture. So go on Craigslist or on the Facebook Marketplace and find the things that are free that people are getting rid of and then repurpose them and sell them for profit. So those are some things that you can do as a stay-at-home mom that aren't necessarily a job, but still bring in a little bit of extra income.
Exactly. I love the train of thought that you're on. Because some of my ideas and some of our moms in MOMnation AZ actually do this. They have kids at home, so they take on another couple of kids.
Yeah, that's a great idea too.
Do some in-home babysitting. Or, we've got some pretty fantastic bloggers that blog on, either mom life or something even more specific. And you can start creating affiliate accounts like with Amazon and with a bunch of other large brands out there. There's a ton of stuff that you can do to, start bringing in an income on the content that you put out too.
Yes, that is really good idea. Like anybody can write a blog. I know we like to think that we're not creative or we're not writers, but we are so much more creative than we ever give ourselves credit for.
Totally. So there's lots of things out there depending on, what your interests are, what your skill level is, and what you're passionate about. And, I will say it until my very last day on this planet. Do what you're passionate about and the money will come.
Very true. There are so many different opportunities out there. We just either we don't look for them or we ignore them. And I think it's really important to just always keep an open mind. You never know when the right opportunity is going to knock on your door, literally or figuratively sometimes. And just looking for those ways and those chances that you can grab a hold of and use to your advantage is so key when it comes to creating your own income.
Totally agree. All right, Daphne. Well, we hope that our suggestions are helpful to you and, of course, to other moms out there that might be dealing with the same thing. Miss Beth, anything that we didn't add that we should?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I just like to, again, remind everyone to please like, comment, share, engage with our posts, follow our podcast. And if you have your own question, feel free to submit it because it is anonymous and we would love to help more of you out.
Yes, totally agree. All right, moms, until next time.
Bye.
Moms with aspiration, moms are inspirations, moms in circulation, moms at their workstations. Mom, they make a nation. This is a MOMnation.